In today's edition of the Academy Express, what we're going to be working on is a razored shape, mid-length, heavily layered, with a really beautiful fringe. Okay, so you're going to want to grab your tools. I'm going to be working with a straight edge blade. This is something that I've been working with for many years and I feel very comfortable with. Throughout my career, I've worked with many different types of razors, some with guards, some with really fine teeth, some with really wide teeth. Whichever type of tool you're using and you feel comfortable with, that's fine. It'll all work. Sectioning. Sectioning is just as important as cutting the hair itself. Um, you need to know where you're going and how you're going to get there. So, it's basically your roadmap. If something doesn't seem right or if you want to change it, that's fine. At least you have a map of where you're going to and what the end result is that you're looking for. The way that I've sectioned this out is I've gone from panel 1, panel 2, panel 3. So panel 1 is going to be my fringe. Okay, so the fringe, I've worked basically where the round of the head happens. So where the comb leaves the head, right? So if we're, can you see that? So where the comb leaves the head, that's where I start my section. Typically in a fringe, you would work more of a triangular section or maybe a rounded section, depending on what you're going for. But here, we're going to take that all the way down. So basically, it's becoming a radial from the top of the ear to the top of the ear on the other side. Okay? Radial from the top of the ear to the top of the ear. Okay, my next section is going to be taking 2 sections all the way back just below the crown. The way that I've worked that is we're going to measure with our comb again, placing the comb nice and flat on the head. You can see where the comb leaves the head. Right, so I can stick my finger here where the comb left the head. I can rock that comb and then section all the way back, just below the crown. You're going to do the same thing on both sides. Okay, so for the purpose of filming, I'm going to work one side and then the next on the perimeter. So taking almost a horizontal section to about the mid-ear. Now, depending on the density of your client that you're working on, sometimes you might have to, work with a little less hair. And I also want to make sure that I am creating more of a textured perimeter, so I'm going to be very open with my blade. So a bit denser of a section is going to be okay. So coming through, getting my blade moving before I come down and start cutting on the hair. So you can see I'm very open with that blade. Okay, so for the next section, you're going to place your finger right on the top of the ear, and then you're going to place your comb everything to all the hair towards your finger. Then you'll place your comb in the center back, pushing all that hair forward. Then you can grab, and then you have a really nice clean section. Clip that hair right up out of the way. And then you're going to continue to follow the guide that you've just created. So, fine teeth of the comb, working with a very open blade. Nice tight tension. And I am slightly over directing that hair back. So I'm creating more of a square line through the back. Next section, dropping all this hair down, and I'm going to continue following my guide. Okay, so starting my last section on this side, combing from the base of my section every single time, nice tight tension. That's really the key when it comes to precision razor cutting. You have to have really nice tension. It's got to be nice and tight. Really just taking the time. A lot of people think that razor cutting is the quicker way to cut hair, and it's really not. Sometimes my razor cuts take longer than my scissor cuts because I'm being that much more cautious, more controlled, and just making sure that my sections are very clean and my tension is very tight. Also paying attention to how the razor feels in my hand. Typically, I change my blade once every 2, maybe 3 haircuts, but I always try to decide when I'm going to change that blade within the first couple sections of my cut because you never want to change it halfway through. Now we've created our perimeter. Now what I want to do is I want to go through and I want to create a little bit of a face frame in the front. Okay, so we're going to section for our face frame. We're going to take a diagonal back section to the corner of the nape, clip that hair out of the way, comb this hair down to natural fall, and starting at the jaw, I'm scooping my hand forward, and I'm going to work from my knuckle down. The corner of the nape is my length, so I know that I have to work my section all the way down to my length, but I'm not cutting it. Okay, so again, combing from the base of my section, getting my razor moving before I hit the hair, and I'm sliding both hands as I cut. Keeping in mind that my length is my length and I cannot cut it. Okay, I'm going to comb that one more time just to make sure I made it down to my length because this is my length. Okay, just want to make sure that I didn't stop. You see there's a little bit there before my length. Okay, we want to make sure that the face frame is very heavy. So taking diagonal back sections, combing the hair down to its natural fall, whatever falls in your hands, whatever falls into that section, that's the only thing that you cut. So basically what I'm trying to say is we're not over directing that hair forward because we don't want to layer this hair out, okay? So slight diagonal back sections. You have 1 or 2 sections left in this because typically we've already sectioned the hair so far back behind the ear that this hair, it wants to live here. It doesn't want to live in this area. So unless we over direct, you really shouldn't be cutting much off. So you can see it's really I only have that little bit, okay? What that's going to do is that's going to make this perimeter a really heavy, but textured because we're working with an open blade perimeter. Again, no over direction, natural fall. And I'm just going to let this last section, just going to comb everything down, and you'll be able to see that everything falls and lives where it wants to. So as we move on, we're doing the exact same thing that we just did. Taking diagonal back sections, clipping this hair out of the way, combing this hair to its natural fall, and then just working, combing down. Now my fingers are pointing up. Okay, so my fingertips are pointing at the jaw, so that's going to be my guide. I'm going to work with the back of my blade. The reason I'm going to work with the back of my blade on this side is because I just really need to make sure that my client stays safe. So the tip is pointing outwards. Whereas on the other side, I was working with the tip and then the back of my blade was pointing out. So at no time could my client get cut. Again, so it's combing down to its natural fall. So natural fall and then curving your hand forward, sometimes it can look like you're over directing, but always just pay attention to what's happening here. So this is the distribution in which the way the hair is being combed from the head. Okay, so natural fall is distribution. Zero elevation, working straight down to my length. So I have a little bit left right here. I have a little corner. This is very easy to keep that little corner here, this little bit. A lot of times we get nervous that we're gonna cut our corner off. So we leave just a little tip that we have to go back through and get later. Okay, so just take the time to comb it again and to see that you've gotten everything. When it comes to fringe, depending on the client, depending on their previous haircut, determines on whether I'm going to cut the fringe first or if I would cut it last, or in this case, in the middle. I'm cutting it in the middle today because I'm working on a clean blank canvas. She doesn't have pre-existing fringe. She doesn't have pre-existing layers I have to worry about. So it's really just kind of, one, we did our perimeter. Now, what's our next perimeter? It's the fringe. So I'm going to come through and get this off. By doing this as well, it's giving her time to get used to this shape. She's going to get excited. You're going to get excited. And then the rest of the layering will just fall right into place. So let's get started. I took down one side. Typically in the salon world and salon atmosphere, I would work one side then the next, back and forth. Again, for filming purposes, I'm going to do one side and then I'll go over and do the next. Let's talk about where the length is going to be. Where is it going to start and where is it going to end and why? We know that we have our face frame that falls right at our jaw. Okay, now to start the fringe, we would want to have a really nice line between the eyebrows, the bridge of the nose. These are really great points of the face to start a fringe. Now, coming through, ending at the cheekbone, the mid-ear, depending on your client's face, you can really manipulate the shape of a face on how the fringe sits. Is it square? Is it round? Is it triangular? Does it end straight up by the eye? Here, we're going to have a piece that starts at our jaw, and then if we end our fringe here, now we have this open space right in here. And what that does, if we have a shorter bit here that ends here in an open space, your eyes, when somebody looks at that client, their eyes, it gets drawn up this way. As opposed to if we get really nervous and we do our fringe like this, then what's going to happen is it's going to come out this way. Your eyes are going to be drawn out that way, which makes the face wider. So depending on the client's face shape, that's how you determine where to begin and where to end this type of fringe. Okay, so we're going to take diagonal sections again. We're going to comb this hair straight out from the hairline. If you need to kind of give yourself a guide, you can drop your fingers down, visualize where you want that hair to sit, elevate it back up. You see that I'm balancing my ring finger, kind of tripoding my hand out. Opening that blade, sitting right between the eyes. Now, continuing, I'm going to pivot off this point. My end result is to have this fall right at the mid-ear. So that's where it's going to end. I'm going to continue to comb right off the hairline. Opening that blade, combing the hair from side to side. Still elevating off the hairline. Combing that hair straight out. The hair is nice and damp. It's not soaking wet, doesn't need to be. And I'm working with our Silk Nourishing Spray to keep it nice and moisturized, to keep the integrity of the hair as I work. You can use water as well. For me, when I'm working on mannequin hair, I just really enjoy the Silk Nourishing Spray. It's very easy for me to section, and it keeps the hair really combable. That's a bit thick, so I'm gonna tame it back down. Again, still combing off the hairline, excuse me. Might be getting a little long, which is fine. I can always go back. But it's best just to continue and working in the same manner, especially when I'm trying to get some length up. Okay, yeah, so I did get a little bit long right around here. So I'm just gonna go back through and tighten it up. Okay, so I'm finished with this side of the fringe. I'm happy with it. I like where it's falling. So let's just take this clip out and see the proportions before we move on. Let's do the other side of the fringe. I'm really happy with the way that this shape is coming out. I love the way that the fringe moved from side to side. I love when working with an open blade and you're working on texture that has a little bit of wave to it. It's so great just to get this like natural movement that starts to happen, that separation. It's great. I love the disconnected sides. It's disconnected, but it doesn't look super crazy. And when we drop this top down, we still have hair that fills in the blank. So let's go through, let's start our layering because we haven't even started that yet. And the way that we're going to approach the layering is going to be square. So we'll start in the back and we'll move our way forward. So let's go ahead and start on our layering. We're going to work from the back forward, then we'll attack the top at the very end. So I've gone ahead and I've taken a profile section. Okay, this is going to be our guide for both sides, but again, for filming's sake, and actually in the salon environment, I would work one side and then the next. So I'm going to go ahead and work on the left side. You work on whichever side is comfortable for you. I'm going to comb this hair straight out. Just make sure that my mannequin's head is nice and centered. Okay. So I'm going to comb the hair straight out. And I am elevating this bottom up slightly, not a lot, just slightly, so that this hair is straight out at 90. Now, I want to make sure that I do not touch my length at all. So the only thing that's coming off is this little corner here. Everything that falls out, which will basically be around an 1.5 to 2 inches up from the hairline, that's typically what's going to be falling out with this type of length. Okay, so just always pay attention to that. Comb it a few times. When I'm in the salon, sometimes I'll turn my client to the side and I'll use my mirror to make sure that my elevation is not there, it's not there, it's just straight out from the head. Okay, so again, coming through. Going to be working from the top down. Again, an open blade. I'm going to recomb. I'm not trying to do this all in one go. And then I'm going to comb it one more time just to make sure that I got everything. Okay. So continuing working vertical sections, over directing back to my previous. So it will be a traveling guide. Okay. It's not all the way back to the center. It's just to the previous. And always making sure that your elevation is right where it needs to be, straight out from the head. Making sure that I'm combing. Get that in there again, a little bit cleaner. Making sure I'm right where I need to be. My next section, just continuing to work around, over directing, just right back to my previous section. Okay, so this side's all done. Just to revisit what we actually did. We took vertical sections, held it out at 90 degrees, worked nice and square, traveled our sections around, over directed back to the previous. As we started to hit the corner, so basically right as the head starts to round forward to the sides, we over directed that hair all the way back. Okay, so we created a nice square layer from the back. We're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. The underneath is complete. I like the way it looks. How about you? We're on the home stretch right now. Let's get this top done and let's see her styled. I'm getting really excited. So with the top, we've dropped it down. We're going to take a parting. We're going to work from the crown forward, just to part the left side and the right side apart. And we're going to pivot around this top. So we're going to create more of a round layer. And we're going to over direct back to our previous so that we can maintain some of this length in the front. Okay, so I'm going to tilt my mannequin's head back slightly. When you're working with the razor, it's very easy to get your body in these weird positions. So adjusting your client's head is okay. They don't mind tilting their head back or to the side for a couple of seconds. So tilting the head back. I can see my guide from underneath. And I'm going to work now. I'm going to stretch over and I'm going to work with the tip of my blade. I'm just going to round that up. I don't want to cut it too short. You know, again, just maintaining what I've already started with the layering. So there's really no disconnection at all. Okay. Continuing to work, pivoting around that crown, over directing back to my previous. You don't have much to cut. It's just this little top area. You can also drop your chair down when you're working on a client. That's easy too. I tend to work with my chair, dropping it down or pumping it up quite often through a haircut. I'm also very much into tilting my client's head so that I can get myself into the right position that I need to be in. So again, working more of a round layer. Stopping the check every now and then just to make sure I like the way that it's falling in. Last section here. You can see that over direction going back to my previous. Just rounding it. Okay, I'm going to continue that, just working forward. Now I'm going to tilt the head back and to the side. So that would look more like that if I was the client. I'm going to continue to pivot off that crown. Continue to work back to my previous. And that's allowing me to maintain that length that I want to maintain in the front. I can see my guide underneath. So my sections are thick enough that I'm cutting hair off and I'm moving through this haircut, but they're thin enough that I can see what I'm doing, what my section is. I can see my guide from underneath. If it's not, you can tell when my section is too thick because I'll immediately just go through and resection quite quickly. Sometimes I don't talk about it, but that's what I'm doing. It's just a habit that if I can't see it, I resection it. Last section on this side. And again, so the underneath, just to recap, the back and the sides are cut square to the back. The top area is cut round. I like what's going on here. Let's do the other side. Okay, so the shape is done. We just have a little bit of detail work to do. So because we were over directing that hair back as we were working around in the top, we do have a little bit of overhang on the fringe area. So what you want to do is you just want to comb the hair to its natural fall. And then you can just go through and do a little bit of twist cutting just to get those little excess hairs off. And because you've combed this hair down to its natural fall, that's where it's naturally going to want to live anyways. So sometimes clients, they get a little weird about taking the fringe too far back. And for me, that's a really good lesson or things to show them, not a lesson really, things to show them is that that's where that hair wants to live. It's naturally always going to fall there. So, it's okay just to cut it out of the way, especially on a shape like this, because it's not a really cool look to keep pushing pieces of hair out of the way. So just coming through, seeing what's to fall or what wants to fall in the fringe line, twist cutting it off, just twisting in opposite directions, but not cutting it too far back. I really like what it looks like because of that over direction, there is a little bit of disconnection on the fringe area. So this top area is living over that fringe area. It's just really there to open up the cheekbones. So I'm really happy with the way that this has turned out. Let's put some product in there and see her dries. We're going to work with two different products today. We're going to work with our setting spray. Can't really see that with my lighting. It's the setting spray from Crew, New York. And the reason that I want to use this is that it's a really versatile product. I really like working with it if I'm doing like any type of twist blow dries or even like with a brush or with my fingers. I also use it a lot as like a gel or even when I'm working with hot tools. So it's one of my go-tos in the salon. So I'm going to spray that all over. Okay. And then I'm going to work with our styling balm. So the styling balm is definitely one of my hero products. It is a product that I use on probably 75–80% of my clients. You can see on my hands, it creates kind of like a buttery sheen in the hair. It's very more like a satin finish. So it's not greasy, it's not too dull, it's just a very healthy satin finish. The hold is a very light hold, so the combination with the setting spray that has a bit more of a hold is a really nice combo. My clients can let this combo air dry in their hair and then they shake it out, break it up once it's dry, or again, you can blow dry. The reason I'm putting the styling balm in the hair when it's wet is because I am going to do a little bit of finger drying. So it's going to make it a little bit clumpy and then I can go through and finish it off at the very end. Okay, so the finishing touches would be a little bit more styling balm. This is just for like my personal preference. I think it's always good once you have worked the product in, you just add a little bit more. I like to layer my products in, and I also teach my clients how to do this as well so they can achieve the same look at home that I've done for them in the salon. So putting a little bit more styling balm, I'm just going to go through and flatten out. You saw that I was really palming the head as I was drying because I wanted to keep it nice and flat. You also probably saw that I had my hand underneath and I was drying this way, a bit more flat, as opposed to scrunching the wave. I still wanted that texture of the wave, but I didn't want it to come out this way. I wanted it to go down more vertically. So I kind of used my hand underneath as a board and I dried high heat, low speed so it didn't get frizzy and so it could just press in that texture. I'm really happy with the way she turned out. I like the length, I like the fringe. So when you're working with a razor, it's really important that you work with a sharp blade, you keep the moisture content in the hair, and you work with finer sections than you usually would. The heavier handed you have to be to bust through those sections, the more shredded each of those sections will end up being, and it will show on your model.